What's up everybody, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to tell you about all the issues I've kind of had modifying my BRZ from stock to being turbocharged. Now, out the gate, right now, I have 132,000 miles on my dash, original engine, it hasn't been reopened, nothing, no servicing, 132,000 miles. And when I first got the car, it was at 79,000. So since owning the car, I have gone through engine-wise modifications, headers, intake, tuning. After that, I was retuned with ethanol with bigger injectors and a bigger fuel pump. After I went through that, I put the turbo kit on. So that's about a lot of the engine mods that have been stressing the engine since I bought it, prematurely I should say. Putting more power towards it, therefore wearing it out faster. So at first, the car was like, I've had no problems with the engine at all. The engine itself, not a single problem with. But there have been some stuff around the car or the engine that have failed on me as a result of modifying it. So the first issue I ran across when modifying the BRZ, engine-wise, was I was tuned by Delicious Tuning for after getting my unequal length catless headers and my Grimspeed air intake. The car wouldn't start sometimes. It would have a really rough idle for about 10 seconds and shut off. And then after shutting the car off completely and starting it back up, it would just turn on like nothing ever happened. I actually never found out what that issue was, which makes no sense. It just, after I was retuned for the turbo, it just went away completely. So that issue presided for about a year of me owning the car until I turbocharged it. I was tuned by Delicious Tuning initially, and after that I was tuned by them again for ethanol, and the issue was still there. Regardless though, didn't have a problem other than that, which is, it's more of like an inconvenience because you start the car up and you just hear it die out, and it's kind of like embarrassing, especially if you're in like a big group of people. But other than that, there wasn't a never issue I had just being like full bolt on, we'll call it, even though I wouldn't consider it that. After that, I went with the turbocharger and didn't have an issue with the turbocharger at all, because even on ethanol, until the map sensor went out. It's an Omni 4-bar map sensor, which in itself isn't, reputable. They're known to go out. But I had a really bad idle issue for like 3 or 4 months. We couldn't even pinpoint it. I even tried another Omni sensor and it just didn't work until I bought a new Omni sensor and it worked. It just magically fixed the issue. Other than that, if you came to hearing horror stories and me modifying my BRZ and the engine giving me an absolute piss of a time, the car has been really, really good to me, even for 132,000 miles. Now, I have a 2013, which means I have a valve spring recall, technically, issue, which is the valve springs would just shear themselves off the pressure of just, idling or high RPM, whatever. I haven't had that issue. I haven't even gone back in for it because it just doesn't stress me enough. I didn't hear enough horror stories about it to do anything like that. Now, the biggest issue I actually had was I blew the throwout bearing completely out. I mean, I melted it to the actual trans shaft. So I did a dig with launch control at 4,000 RPM, doing just having fun, and the car completely locked itself out in a wood chip because the throwout bearing couldn't depress the clutch. So pulling the trans out, I did this all on jack stands. I pulled the trans out after 14 hours of getting everything out and then finally letting the trans back in. Everything was perfectly put back on the car, and that was the only horror story I have modifying the car in general. Everything has gone on really easy. The one thing that I've had trouble with is spark plug replacement, but that's just because it's a Subaru, it's a flat engine. The spark plugs are where the chassis mount is, so it's kind of hard to shimmy your hand in, kind of do a little twist action and stuff like that. But that's just the price you pay. Every car has its thing that is just known for being awful, but this car, that's kind of it. That was it for me. The turbocharger, the whole setup was actually probably the easiest modification I've done on the car, even easier than actually putting regular headers on the car, because I had more knowledge of it. I had more knowledge of what to do for modifying the car, so I was just able to drop the old headers, put the new ones back on, put the front bumper off, rattle the intercooler piping and the intercooler. It was really, really easy for me. Other than that, engine hasn't given me any trouble. Like, just on me, it hasn't spit metal into the oil pan, no bearing, nothing. Like, engine's been perfectly fine. 132,000 miles in. Now it's time to talk about the issues that I've probably caused myself, which, you know, it's hard to admit that I did wrong on my car and caused the car to break, but I did. I'm not perfect, and I took a lot of shortcuts when I was first learning because I was lazy, which you should never do. So when I installed the injectors, there is a ECU for the injectors attached to the passenger side bracket that you have to take off. So it's a guard that protects the injectors from heat or any debris, and connected to that is the ECU for the injectors. Well, I took off the ECU, took off the guard, put my new injectors in, and when I put the guard back on, I put the ECU in, but I didn't do the bottom bolt, which connects to the engine, which ends up being the ground for the ECU. So driving down the street, my car shut off on me completely, and I had no idea why until I figured, yeah, I'm just stupid. So that was, you know, kind of one of the big issues that I caused myself. The other one technically is like half mine, half not. I talked a lot about how the Speed by Design turbo headers that I have on the car were known for cracking and breaking at the welds. Now, as far as I know, it's like the only turbo kit that people sell for the BRZ that has a flex pipe at the headers, other than the Greddy kit, I guess. So that creates a weakness on the header because it's right after the engine dumps the exhaust, and it's right there. So that's a really big heat spot. So it creates, you know, weakness in the welds because it's getting so hot. And I love to shoot flames. So shooting too many flames, I blew the welds open completely. I was having really bad idle issues. I was having an exhaust leak, and I'm like, I might as well check that. You know, it's known for breaking. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I didn't want to take the entire setup off just to weld the headers, so I used a metal epoxy, or metal bonding epoxy, which worked really well and fixed the issue itself. And other than that, it's been running, you know, okay since then. I have my map sensor went out again. I forgot to mention that my Omnibar map sensor went out again. I had fixed it again in a previous clip. I fixed it, and then now it's out again 3 months later. So if you're gonna go with Omni, I haven't had a good time with them. Just rethink about it. I want to show you what I'm talking about. The map sensor is located right here on the BRZ. I have it just shielded because I don't want any of the wires getting messed up. The map sensor right here went out twice now, and it's now out once again, which is really, really aggravating because I just want the car to work just for once fully. And it's not even the car's fault, it's just the parts around it. This is what happens when you modify a car. Other than that, I haven't had any problems with the BRZ. Like, the engine has been fine, the axles have been fine, which are known for snapping. Like, the chassis has been perfectly fine. I haven't had any other issues with the BRZ. So thankfully, it's done me good. And I've heard horror stories of people blowing their engines just driving down the road, they spin a bearing. I mean, there are circumstances to why that happens, and thankfully that's never happened to me because I do basic maintenance on the car. And I knew the track record of the car before I bought it. I didn't just buy it from somebody and like, oh yeah, they 100% took care of the car and didn't ride it out, you know. So other than that, that's kind of about it. I don't have like horror stories to tell you. I don't have like, oh, I replaced my engine 3 different times because I blew it. That's not me. I've put 50,000 miles on this car of absolute torture. I've beat this car every single day I've owned it for the last 2.5 years, and I don't have like a bad story about it. So whether that's a good thing or whether that's a bad thing, you can tell me. But I hope I was able to answer some of your questions, or just like maybe answer some of your curiosities about what goes into modifying a BRZ or the problems, I should say, it could cause. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys watching this video. Sorry it's a little bit all over the place. I'm trying to get back to the rhythm of it. I've been on vacation for a little bit. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody who has come to the channel, watched my videos, and supported me on like all social media platforms and in general. I really appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.